But let's back it up and talk about the Microsoft moving beyond consoles. Uh, what's the dealio, Justin?
I actually don't know, but no, I mean, uh, basically, to preempt E3, Phil Spencer was giving interviews, and they sort of did like a wider marketing presentation, which included like a web page launch and some graphic material and whatnot. But talking about how they're going to be pursuing bringing the Xbox platform beyond consoles, primarily working with TV manufacturers, like sort of coming along with the fact that they are have pursued browser and what else we got iOS or actually Android support and PC, Mac, and then yeah, I think that's what they're primarily on right now to have xCloud and their wider games library. Um, you know, to be expanding out into things. This isn't entirely surprising. Like if you've just been paying attention to what Microsoft has been doing,
Mm-hmm.
this announcement is like, yeah, it makes sense. I think what might be surprising is the way this sort of speaks to the gamers who are used to console wars being if you own console X or console Y, you have exclusive access to a set of games. It still holds true for the PS5 for the most part, in which if you own a PS5 or PS4, you have a handful of games that are exclusive to the console, or at least timed exclusive long enough for a couple of years before it might migrate onto the PC.
Same with Switch. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Now the Xbox is sort of flipping that on its head and saying, like, look, the most important thing to us isn't the console, it is the games, it's the game platform, and they're like steaming like right ahead with trying to get the Xbox Cloud and Xbox Game Pass platform onto as many platforms as possible, and giving that usually console exclusive content to anybody who has a device that can stream the Xbox cloud gaming solution. And this is going to be their wider strategy. So, Eric, after me
Mm-hmm.
summarizing everything that they talked about, what do you think this will mean for the gamers?
Well, for one thing, it'll basically be any screen that you can get in front of can be your window into your Xbox games. And that means just like if you're on the go, you can pick up your phone or a tablet and play your Xbox games. If you're at home, you can play on the PC. You can play on your Xbox console. You don't even need to have an Xbox console. You'll be able to play with the smart TV because there will be theoretically an app for that on whatever smart TV you have. And I believe they were talking about getting even the Xbox controller to work with um, smart TVs with certain partners at
Yeah,
least.
that would be part of the like working with the TV manufacturers. I think it would become part of like a package where the hardware supports,
Yeah,
connecting to the Xbox protocol or wireless protocols.
right. Getting to identify the controller in the right way via theoretically via Bluetooth, and then passing that information to the correct APIs in whatever application it is that Microsoft will build for that TV, so that they can enable the gaming. Now, if you've already done the Xbox Cloud gaming implementation for mobile, it's not a far cry to just say like, well, we'll just do that same thing, but do it over on the bigger screen for the TV as well. If you're talking about 1080p or 4K, you're going to talk about bandwidth consumption. Basically needing to have enough bandwidth to support those resolutions. But we're slowly getting there. Certain pockets of the consumer base are already there where that's feasible. But at the very least, uh, it looks like Microsoft is just trying to make it so that they want to make sure that any game that they can sell is available to everyone. There is no reason that they cannot play it whenever, wherever they are.
Right. I mean, I think
Uh,
what it does for gamers is kind of has to like switch the way you think about it, in which it was like, Xbox is the place that you get these awesome titles. But now it's kind of like more of a Xbox is, Series X is the ideal place to play these. I mean, outside of a high end gaming PC. Um, and that's like a different sort of marketing and tagline that I think gamers are used to. Whether or not they like it or not, I have yet to see. Like, there's still some pretty diehard Xbox gamers. I don't know if they're offended by the fact that like their formerly exclusive games really can be played by anybody as long as you have a streaming device.
Right. And now, one extra interesting thing they announced is that their data centers are slowly being upgraded. The Azure backend is being upgraded so that the racks of machines that actually play the games on their cloud service are being replaced. Apparently, up until even right now, to an extent, a lot of the hardware is running on Xbox One consoles, presumably Xbox One X, but they don't go into that detail. Uh, According to their announcement, that's slowly being replaced with Xbox Series X hardware, which means good things for the speed at which the games on Game Pass will run, how they'll load, and as well um, how they render. Like, what are the graphical features you'll be able to access through that? Now, of course, they're still going to be compressed and sent over the wire to your screen, so there may be some compression artifacts for that. But not having played with Xbox Cloud Gaming myself, I can't speak to the quality there. Justin, have you've actually picked up a subscription, at least temporarily, to Xbox Game Pass? Have you tried the Xbox Cloud Gaming stuff?
I could not get it to work, so not yet.
Got it.
Soon.
Yep.
Do you think this is going to have any sort of impact on the way the developers are approaching game development as
Oh,
for Xbox, and knowing that if they're a Xbox Game Pass, uh, I guess, game on that platform, like, and they're going to be going to the cloud, do you think this has any impact on the way the developers are going to be approaching things?
yeah. It's really hard to say right now. I think putting myself in a developer's shoes, looking at the platform, it kind of makes me want to shy away from building particularly timing sensitive games where um your input needs to be frame based. For instance, like certain fighting games where there are, in order to block a hit at the right time, you have to get in on the right frame. um in theory, that could be okay with some like extra forgiving networking code on the back end for the game being done. But you're actually dealing with multiple round trips for the game instead of one or two, because now you're streaming it from a data center to yourself back to whatever. Maybe there's an optimization there where both players in that type of situation are playing in, um if they're able to specifically play in cloud gaming kind of silos, then maybe the cloud gaming kind of network would be fast enough so that it would almost be like a LAN experience, except for the actual screen being broadcast to your screen from the display being broadcast from Azure data center to your monitor. So at that point, any of the conversation happening between consoles would no longer be going over the internet, but it would be going over the data center's network, which is hyper fast. Maybe there's something like that. That's the kind of question as a developer I would ask Microsoft if they're handling. If you're out in the middle of Vermont, like where I am right now, you're perhaps a little bit further away from the data centers than other people, and maybe that is going to have an effect on how well those Twitch style games are going to play for you as a developer. To go back to the original question, for me, that is something that I think I would be very careful about and saying, okay, this is going to be a Game Pass targeted experience, or is this going to be something where I'm very much intending this to be Xbox and PC? And at this point, maybe I start thinking, well, for this type of game, it makes better sense to build something for, say, the PlayStation. maybe the Switch, if the control is forgiving enough for that type of controller, or I know that my player base is going to all have the Pro controller or some other setup. Do you have any other thoughts on that as like a game developer? What kind of impact
No,
this
I mean,
might
I think
have
that's the only
on
consideration. There's just like the broader application, which is the Xbox Studios teams having to
yeah.
support quite a wide array of hardware types.
Yep.
And that has stuff that we've already talked about, but it's not exclusive to play, or it's not exclusive to Xbox at this point, because PlayStation's also choosing to support, at least for their next year of PlayStation titles, support both PS4 and PS5, which means that developers are going to have a lot of trouble optimizing their games for
The
that.
lower end hardware, yeah.
But as of right now, like I guess it depends on like how quickly Xbox Cloud gets upgraded to running like entirely um, Series X consoles to be streaming that data back. Because right now it's Xbox One consoles, so if your studio's game, you have to be able to support that if you want to
Yeah.
cloud stream a game that. If you want to play a cloud stream a next gen game, it has to run on one consoles for now, which we'll see an update in the future. So I guess the last question is like, what do you think this means for, in particular, Sony and any of the other competitors right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it Sony is tough to say for me. I've never played with the PlayStation Now service myself, so I'm not sure where they're at. They haven't shown or talked about anything there, so it's kind of hard to say what's coming, if anything, in that realm. I've been very happy as a lucky PS5 owner to see, up until now at least, and maybe we'll get to the fact that they haven't had an E3 presence, but uh, they seem to have been focused on the games for PS5, and yeah, now noting that they're coming out for PS4, but at least being like, look, we stand by the PS5. This is what we're pushing for. That's been nice. It's hard to say what Sony's going to do on this front. I think they're going to eventually have to respond in some way, but I'm not sure when that will be, because Stadia has been around for a long time. They have 4K streaming, as I understand it, and it really didn't take off. That said, it also didn't have the same strategy with like hardware on the console with a transition period towards uh the what's it called, the cloud gaming services. So there may be a situation where having the player base that is happy with their consoles and then can play on their console, and then over time start to be like, oh, you know what, I'm going to go play this on the toilet, right? Like on my phone, I can keep playing on my phone. Once they get used to that, playing it anywhere, they'll start not playing with their console as much, and before they know it, they're like, why am I going to buy a console?
Microsoft, I think, has the right idea where becoming a streaming platform more than a console platform will allow them to sell more subscriptions. They're already driving an enormous value in their Gamer Pass subscription model. That's going to get XCloud at some point, or Xbox Cloud Gaming at some point. I don't think Sony can sit there and be non-competitive, and actually it goes the same thing with Nintendo. It's like at some point Microsoft is going to start eating their lunch, and it's going to start biting into their profitability when you can get a Gamer Pass for whatever $15 a month, uh, which might be $10 more than what Nintendo's asking for their online play. But it also comes
Yeah.
with EA Play. It comes with whatever, and it still allows you to play games wherever, assuming you have a decent enough internet connection. And
Right.
clearly, there's going to still be people that are going to be limited by that. But the thing I see is that um, you either have to compete directly with it, which I don't think is going to happen very easily, or you have to come up with more novel ways of reasons to be on that console platform. It's usually through IP, which Microsoft, I think, rightly acknowledged that they just didn't have a strong IP portfolio and decided that they had to buy it.
Yeah.
But it really stands to reasons like Sony can't stand being where they're at and staying where they're at, because they'll see their market slowly get eaten away at, and by the next time someone's like, well, should I buy a console, like, well, I have an internet connection and I get decent enough gaming on this $15 service that gives me as much as I want.
Right.
It's going to be a real thing people are going to be thinking about. So I think Sony has to start thinking about what it means to be a PlayStation gamer. Do they compete directly with Microsoft and try to create a streaming service, or do they find a new novel way of providing value to their gamers to keep people attached to the PlayStation?